And as they fall and get up, that's how they learn. That's how they grow. And in the same way, when you're in 20s, you're kind of, you're starting a whole new chapter. You're kind of a baby entering into the world, right? As an adult now. And don't hold yourself back. Go, explore, learn, and be bold in your decisions. Allow yourself to explore the world, and don't be so fearful about making mistakes and things like that, because, it's through our mistakes and it's through the times that we fall that A, we gain wisdom, and B, we become stronger. Every time you fall and get up, you become stronger. Today, I'm going to be continuing part 2 of my message, Make Bold Decisions. And I want to speak today particularly to those in their 20s, those who, are just stepping out and starting out life, and I know in the 20s there's a lot to navigate. I've been there. And now that I'm out of my 20s, I have the perspective that time gives you, and when you're in the middle of your 20s, you're making decisions, you're trying to figure out who you are. There's a lot of things that you are trying to figure out and work through. And so I hope to be able to share something here, particularly about making decisions, that will be able to encourage you in your journey, wherever you are at right now. First thing I want to say is that, when you enter your 20s and you start out, you're kind of starting your journey of becoming an adult, and part of being an adult is making decisions. A quote that I love, it says that to choose to decide is to take responsibility for your life. When we take on that like stance that I'm going to be decisive about my path, I'm going to be decisive about the way that I use my time, my money, and about the person that I want to become, you're truly taking responsibility for the life that you've been given. And that's something that I see now very clearly. Sometimes it's easier to let others decide for you, especially, growing up in your family as well. You might be used to parents making decisions for you, or sometimes it's easier to let chance decide for you. But if you really want to take ownership of your life, and you have to make decisions for you. For example, maybe you're working a job, you don't like the environment, or you feel like you're not being challenged enough. It's not you're not using it's not a challenging job, and you just feel that it's time to go. It's time to find something else. And to be decisive is to say, what? I don't know if I will find another job, and I'm afraid that I might not. I'm not sure what will be on the other side of my decision, but I'm going to make this decision because I feel this is what I'm meant to do, and this is the path that I'm supposed to take. And waiting on chance would be to say, well, the boss is talking about layoffs, and I hope that maybe in the next layoff he'll let me off because I really don't want to be here. But I don't know, it's a good paying job. And well, if the boss fires me or if he lays me off, then it's meant to be. That is waiting for others to decide for you, to make decisions for you, instead of being bold and saying, okay, you know what? I don't want to be here. I feel like God has something better for me. And you go to the boss and you say, hey, boss, thank you for everything. Here's my 2 weeks notice, And so when you are decisive, you're learning truly what it means to be like responsible. It's part of learning to be a responsible adult, making decisions for yourself. And as you do that, something that comes out of that is that you learn to hear your inner voice, you learn to trust your inner voice, and you learn to know what it sounds like when God is speaking to you in your heart, what it sounds like, what your inner guidance sounds like. And I think this is something that is so valuable because it's something that's being lost, especially now. You have voices and opinions and so many things coming at us in so many directions. And I just think it's so valuable to learn to hear your own inner voice, to hear your own inner guidance, and to learn to follow it, because it's one thing to hear it, but to learn to have the confidence to say, okay, when I hear my inner guidance, I know it's right and I'm going to go for it. The other thing is, when I was in my 20s, I remember wondering if those small decisions that I made really made a difference. For example, a decision maybe to stand on my values about something, when other people are doing things that are completely opposite, and maybe going in the direction that is not as popular. And I see now that those small decisions, every time we make a decision that requires courage of us, it could be something that's small as maybe you're in class and, everybody has a certain opinion about something, but you feel strongly that you want to voice an opinion that maybe contradicts what everybody else believes, and you're kind of nervous because what if the teacher, disagrees with you, or they think your opinion is invalid and things like that, and maybe you might be nervous. But when you take the courage to actually express yourself and to express how you feel, despite the fact that you might be shaking inside, that little courage, that little step of courage, you're building courage within you for those bigger, bolder decisions that you're going to have to make later in life. So what I mean to say is, don't minimize those small moments of courage in your life, whether it be being really honest and speaking up in class about something, or maybe you decide to style your hair a certain way that is something you've always wanted to try, but there's a part of you that's a little bit fearful to try it. Every time you make little decisions, take little steps that require courage of you, you're building a reservoir of courage, which one day will come and will serve you very well when you're faced with a bigger decision that requires a lot of courage on your part, because there might be a lot of opposition to your decision, or a lot of uncertainty or unknown, but you need to be courageous. And that's how we build courage. We build it with those little decisions that we make. And now that I look back at all the little decisions I made that required courage of me, I see how it was actually building something, but I didn't know it at that point. I didn't know it then. So those small decisions matter. God sees those little moments of courage and those little moments where we speak up and we're bold, and it pleases him, and it shows God that you're someone that even if you are faced with something challenging, you're willing to face it, and you don't just run away and hide in the midst of challenges. You're willing to face it, and even if it's small, it reflects something about who you are as a person, and that is awesome, And I believe that in our 20s, as we're figuring out who we are, that God wants to build us through all those little experiences that we're having, to be men and women who are bold, and women and women who are courageous, because that is what life requires of you, because life can be really challenging, and we don't live in a world that's easy, right? The other thing I want to say is that, and this is something that for me too, in my 20s, I was afraid of making decisions because I was afraid of making mistakes. I was afraid of making the wrong decision. What if I regret this decision? What if I make a mistake, and this and that, and just fear of the unknown. I don't know what's on the other side, which is fair, because sometimes we have to make a decision and we don't really know what's on the other side. God wants us to live and to engage with life. He doesn't want us to be fearful, or to let the fear of making mistakes or the fear of being wrong hold us back from engaging with life. When you see a baby that is born and is learning, they're 2 years old. Babies are pure. They have yet to be influenced by the fears of this world and all the concerns and anxieties of this world. And what do you see in children? You see so much energy. They want to interact with their world. They want to know what this is. They're curious. They want to learn. They want to learn to walk. And as they fall and get up, that's how they learn. That's how they grow. And in the same way, when you're in 20s, you're kind of, you're starting a whole new chapter. You're kind of a baby entering into the world, right? As an adult now. And don't hold yourself back. Go, explore, learn, and be bold in your decisions. Allow yourself to explore the world, and don't be so fearful about making mistakes and things like that, because it's through our mistakes and it's through the times that we fall that A, we gain wisdom, and B, we become stronger. Every time you fall and get up, you become stronger. As you explore your world, as you learn who you are as a person, just know that God is there beside you, and he's walking with you in this path. And he's in every situation that you face, as you navigate through your 20s, all the decisions that you have to make. If in your heart you desire to do good, to be a person of character, to be a person of courage, to be a person who desires to do good in the world and to others, know that God will honor that, and he will build you, and he'll build strength and character in you. and He will bless your courage, and He'll bless the fact that you desire to do good in the world. I'm excited. I'm excited for you because it's a time that is a lot of fun. You know, when I look back at my 20s, I had a lot of fun. It's a time you laugh a lot with your friends. You know, everything is funny in your 20s, you know, and there's not as many responsibilities, and it's just it's a time of exploration. And so have fun, you know. And yes, we want to take life seriously, but we also don't want to take life too seriously to the point where we're not enjoying it, we're not having fun. And I believe that God wants us to have fun, to relax, to enjoy ourselves, to have beautiful memories with our friends, with our families, and beautiful adventures. So go out and just explore and live that life. And in the midst of that, take those opportunities to build your character, you know, and ask for God to guide you. And I can say with confidence that you will not regret it. So thank you for taking the time to hear me out, and may God bless you, and may God bless your home.